Good morning, everyone. My name is Orna O'Brien. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Oireachtas in lovely West Cork. Before I begin, let me say thank you for having me and the other young people here today to voice our voice to call for serious change in terms of climate action. I am here for every young person who stood out in the cold and rain and marched, because they do not just want simple measures like levies on plastic bags and coffee cups in our country. We want to change the foundation of how we approach life in Ireland, in every community, in every corner of this island. A huge ask, we know. But as the generation who I believe will invoke change and step away from this fast-paced life that we find ourselves in, we are looking to go back to the basics. Community. It is a word loved by the Irish people. It is the very heart and soul of our culture. We trust our neighbours and friends, and we value their opinions, which is why we strongly encourage that schemes for climate justice are led by local leaders who would be in charge of initiatives. We see GAA coaches, Tidy Towns coordinators, Oireachtas volunteers, and school principals as our advocators. I am sure that we can all think of the perfect person for this kind of role in our own lives. Community-led programs are more effective than outside experts who would come in and preach to communities. Change must come from the bottom up as well as the top down. Living in this country should be accessible. However, according to the World Bank data of 2017, Ireland was the third most expensive country in Europe to live in. I wonder, is it because we cannot seem to run as efficiently as our neighbouring countries? We as a country are behind in our sustainable practices. It is no easy or cheap task to live as environmentally friendly as some people in Ireland may wish to. From having to own your own car because there's simply not enough reliable public transport, to the fact that we are not self-sufficient in dealing with our own waste, or the sheer cost of more sustainable products. Being sustainable should not only be a choice for the wealthy, it is for everyone of all incomes. You, as our legislators in this country, have the opportunity to play a greater role in making it easier for consumers to make sustainable choices. You can step in and create national standards over what we consume to better our country's overall performance in the game of global sustainability. Currently, we are losing. But we believe in having good practices in certain areas and definitely not shaming the small efforts at the beginning. Now, at the beginning being the key part of that statement, because we must all start somewhere. But just because we are behind as a country does not mean that we cannot make a comeback. One great way that Ireland can be a leader in climate action is by investing in creating a circular economy. And we know that this is a focus of this committee, which is why our Oireachtas group, the E-Collective, defines circular economy as designing products and materials that can be reused as much as possible. And then, when they reach the end of their life, they can be recycled to limit the amount of waste we produce. A case study we looked at on our E-Collective's Future Proof Living podcast was the fashion industry. And I'm going to take this as an example of how we can implement a circular economy. Fast fashion is one of the world's biggest climate crisis contributors. It's cheap, often poorly made clothing that is churned out at great speeds, with new trends being released every few days. The fashion industry accounts for 20% of all global water waste. and 8 to 10% of all global carbon emissions, which is more than international flights and maritime shipping combined. Ireland is a small country, but we are a cultural giant. We can use this responsibility to tackle fast fashion. So what can we do to tackle this on an individual basis? A perfect reality would be if we could fall back to the practices of our parents and grandparents in repairing and altering anything we can, as opposed to simply getting a replacement. But how can we do this? Well, for example, the trousers that I'm wearing today were bought secondhand and then tailored to fit me in my local alteration shop. Small efforts like this can create new habits. So, we must buy carefully, buy secondhand, and wear our clothes as much as possible. But nationally, how can we, a country that creates positive change in the fashion industry and help it become a circular industry? Well, we are famous for our quality food because we know exactly where it came from, who prepared it, and how it was preserved. I mean, you can track the potatoes of a particular brand of crisps back to the field that they were grown in. So, why is it that there are so many legal requirements for packaging on food? Why isn't there the same extensive information on clothing labels? All that is legally required to be included on a clothing label is the fibre content. This in no way outlines the full story of where our clothes were made, how, and by who. We can be a leading country in tackling fast fashion by implementing mandatory, extensive information on all clothing labels. More information for consumers will help to create the circular economy we need. There could also be new standards for the fashion companies to use materials that can be recycled or create less waste. We can also support homegrown, local, sustainable businesses. And therefore, this will support our communities too. Measures like this would mean a great deal to my generation, because as under 18-year-olds, where we spend our money is the most political action we take. Samuel Awe, a guest on our podcast, said, "Every euro that you spend is like casting a vote for the future you want." We young people want to work with our legislators, our communities, our adults in schools and at home. The work starts now, though, not when we are in our late 20s and 30s. I hope from what I have said today, you will have listened and are already manifesting ideas on how we can work together to make the kind of future that we believe in. Thank you.